In this unit, we are going to be discussing ecology. In this particular PowerPoint, we're going to be giving you an introduction to these basic concepts and discussing the feeding relationships and transfer of energy between organisms. So throughout this PowerPoint, you need to take out a sheet of lined paper and record these notes, and the information on the slides with this symbol in the upper right-hand corner does not need to be recorded. So we are going to start off talking about what exactly ecology is. So when we talk about ecology, we're describing the scientific study of interactions between organisms and their environments, focusing on energy transfer. When we talk about that energy transfer, we're going to be talking about food chains and food webs. Ultimately, ecology is the science of relationships. So when we describe ecology as organisms and their environment, we are talking about their environment being comprised of two different factors. So first we have biotic factors, just like that prefix tells you, bio meaning life. We're talking about all of the living organisms inhabiting the earth. The other factor is described as abiotic factors, so these are all of the non-living parts of the environment, just like that prefix A of abiotic meaning without will tell you. So we're talking about the parts of the environment that are without life or non-living. So this is where we describe different parts of the environment as being temperature, soil, light, moisture, air currents, maybe precipitation, things of that nature. So we also have a hierarchy of organization when it comes to the levels of ecology. So starting out from largest to smallest, we have the biosphere, ecosystem, community, population, and organism. So when we describe the smallest or lowest level of organization, we are referring to an organism. So this is any unicellular or multicellular individual that exhibits all characteristics of life. So this is one salmon. This is one black bear. So when we refer to an organism, it's very singular and we're talking about one particular individual. When we refer to a population, we're talking about a group of organisms of the same species living in the same place, the same time, that can interbreed. So when we talk about interbreeding, we're talking about them being able to produce fertile offspring or allowing their babies to have babies. In addition to being a population, you have to have these organisms that compete with each other for different resources like food, mates, and shelter. A community refers to the several interacting populations that inhabit a common environment and are interdependent. So as far as a community goes, we're talking about the living organisms that are within the same area that all depend on each other. So an example of a community could be Hampton, where you have these different biotic factors that rely on one another in order to survive. The next largest classification would be an ecosystem. So this is where the populations within that community and those biotic factors interact with those abiotic factors or those non-living factors to create different ecosystems, maybe a marine ecosystem or terrestrial. When we talk about the biosphere, we're talking about the sum of all ecosystems working together. So these are life-supporting portions of Earth that are composed of air, land, fresh water, and salt water. It's often referred to as the zone of life on Earth, and this is the highest level of organization. So when we talk about these different levels of organization as far as ecology goes, I compare them to nesting dolls. So we would start off with the largest nesting doll being the equivalent of a biosphere, and then we have an ecosystem that would fit inside of that biosphere, and you can work your way down through a community, population, and organism. And each one of those fits into each other to all come together to be within the all-encompassing biosphere. Other ideas that often affect ecosystems are organisms' habitat and limiting factors. When we talk about a habitat, we're talking about the place or location in which an organism lives. A limiting factor can be any biotic or abiotic factor that would restrict the existence of those organisms in a specific environment. Examples of this would include amount of water, amount of food, temperature, amount of space, and availability of mates. So in the next video, we are going to talk about the feeding relationships of these different populations within a community and how they are interdependent on one another.